it's based on the loss of my real dog, Hobbs. So he was my beloved dog of 9 years, and he very sadly passed away. And I felt very, very sad about it. And I think that, I don't know, I sometimes feel like there's a bit of a stigma around losing pets, especially if you don't have pets. This thing that my ex-girlfriend used to say whenever the dogs were out sniffing, that they were looking for messages, so they were just picking up their messages. So that was something that always stuck with me. I really loved this idea that they were checking their messages. And then, so sort of combined with going on walks that I'd done with Hobbs, and now he was no longer here, going into the landscape. I live out near Exmoor, so there's lots of, you know, epic landscapes, which I'm so used to seeing him in. Suddenly he wasn't in them. So it was sort of, I wondered if I could bring those two things together. This idea of somebody has left messages in the landscape for another being to find. And then the being was Merlin, who is also based on a real life dog called Merlin, who's my brother's dog. So I had this sort of, I wanted to tell it through his eyes, and then I scratched a story together, and it went from there, really.
I worked at this place called Coombe Farm Studios, and Emma was there, I think, on her residency to write those picture books or work on a series of picture books. And Lara, who I worked with there, introduced us. So we just sat and talked about picture books and talked about some of Emma's ideas and some of the concepts that she wanted to explore through picture books, which really aligned with the things that I was interested in. And it was a lot about, you know, being outdoors and being outside. So it really made sense for me straight away, just sort of clicked straight away. And I think there was a little while before Lara kind of connected us, and then I got the text through for this book, Goodbye Hobbs, and I just got it like straight away. Had the place in my head, the kind of characters were pretty clear very, very soon, and just printed out all of the text and started drawing onto the printer paper some ideas and sent it off to Emma. And it just felt really like a good fit, and the text and image was just working really beautifully. So it was quite quick, really. I then very quickly started working on storyboards, and then Emma went in for an Arts Council bid to be able to continue working on Goodbye Hobbs and a few other stories, and to see if I could then illustrate them. So she got this funding, which meant that I could work on illustrating these books. So yeah, it was just a really brilliant fit, and yeah, so that's how it began.
We can understand a lot of human behaviour in the way animals react and are, and I sort of surround myself with animals, and am sort of endlessly interested in how they are in the world. And also we can take lots of good things from them, and also we can understand through them. Also, I think, having worked with kids all my life, using animals as a tool to be able to explain out a behaviour, I always found really, really useful, because suddenly you're not sort of saying, I think you maybe shouldn't do that because of this. It's like, imagine if Hobbs behaved in this way, or Merlin did this, or Red did that. So I think it's, yeah, it's that really. It's this notion of being able to explain behaviour through animals.
I actually began my education in painting, and was constantly being told by my tutors that I was very illustrative in what I was doing and what I was thinking, and I was always illustrating folk stories and making little graphic novels and things. So I changed and went to study illustration instead, and then went to the Royal Drawing School, where I did a course by Emily Howarth Booth, who is an absolutely brilliant children's picture book writer and illustrator, who ran a course called the graphic novel. And it just sparked something for me, where I understood, you know, I spent 3 years on the degree, hadn't quite worked out what I wanted to do, but it helped me to understand how to bring my ideas together, how to bring text and image together. and just more what I wanted to do. And that's where I made my first picture book, Selkie, was at the drawing school. And then I did my MA in children's picture books, and following that got my first picture book published. So it was kind of through my education really that I understood where I wanted to go and what I wanted to be doing, and the kind of books and the kind of things I wanted to talk about and write about, the things that were important to me. Very instant for me, so I kind of visualised it very clearly, but I also spend a lot of time drawing on location. So whenever I start a new project, or if I'm in between projects, I'll go out and draw on location. So I did that a little bit with this one, mainly for specific things like colours and trees, because we felt, I think it happened quite naturally, but I think we also felt that it made sense for it to be kind of autumnal and turning into winter, that this kind of these sort of in-between seasons, and there being kind of motion and colour that we could sort of use to sort of emulate the emotions was really helpful. So I would just go out and draw a lot, and then I got a big pile of sketchbooks and started sketching out all the ideas and all the characters, and a lot of the very, very early drawings did end up being the final spreads. So the one that I always think of is, I think one of the earliest colour images I did was Merlin in the rain, Merlin stepping outside, rain on head, which is one still probably my favourite, I think. But that was one of the very, very first colour drawings that I did for it. So yeah, so this process of going outdoors and then working my sketchbook and sort of bringing imagination, bringing those things together. I always grew up with animals and dogs particularly, and Merlin definitely is inspired by my own dog, in terms of the way that he charges about, and he's quite a skinny sort of slightly crazy wild thing at times, but has that little nervousness as well. But like, you know, spending time with Emma and her dogs, they definitely, you know, that helped me to get Hobbs right, because obviously that was Emma's dog. So I think inspired by lots and lots of dogs, but helpful that I also own dogs, so their behaviours kind of come out in the drawings.
It teaches children to express feelings. So grief is like the extreme one, isn't it? That's really one of the most traumatic things we experience as people. So it can be anything from there, this notion of loss or something gone or someone going away. So I think that it can teach children to be able to express and talk about a thing, and be able to talk about it, and also to try and get a grasp for themselves to feel in control of how they're feeling about it.
I think it's always a funny one, like you have to kind of create distance from yourself and the people that you love and you're inspired by. So there are people that I absolutely love that are probably kind of similar to the things that I do, and sometimes I have to not look at their work when I'm making things, because otherwise I know that I can get too close to them. So I tend to look at things that are quite different from what I do and try to take something from that. So like John Birmingham with big kind of splashy, you know, boot polish on massive drawings, things like that. Definitely from an early age, I absolutely loved Raymond Briggs. He's probably, him and Shirley Hughes are the people that I would say made me want to illustrate books, 100%. And I think I can really see that in the way that I tell stories. But also lots of artists that I just really admire and that help me to think about storytelling through imagery. So people like Corot, and I think I mentioned Gwen John as well. So it's a real mixture right across the board, really.
I think somebody asked me the other day about, can you give me your top 5 books about grief for children? And I'm still saying The Velveteen Rabbit, which I don't know when it was written, but quite a long time ago. So I think it's still something that doesn't get talked about, or it's certainly something that you're protected from. And then it becomes a bit of a thing that kind of gets caught up in you. And I think it all comes out when you're a bit older. If you don't process suddenly someone or something not being there, and you're hidden from it. I know that even now it's ways of dealing with grief are to not talk about that person. I lost my mum back in 2008. And actually for a while with my immediate family, it was like I couldn't talk about her. We don't talk about her because then we can move on with our lives, which feels really backwards to me. And also children they only ever want you to be honest and upfront with them. And they also listen to you, even as young as 2, they're soaking it up and they're processing and they get it. So I think just being able to openly talk about these things and celebrate it. And also this book is after the event, so Hobbs is gone. So it's about how do we process and deal with that now that dog that we adored has gone. How do we deal with that?
These are things that they are living as well, or that people they know are living. So addressing those things that are just part of life. And I think Goodbye Hobbs does it in such a perfect way, in that because it's after the event, it's all those emotions that go with grief, like sort of somehow you feel guilt at getting back to normal life or doing something that's joyful for you. So it addresses those more nuanced things, I think, not just loss, but how you then move forward, and that it's okay to go and have fun. It's also okay to be sad still, and it's okay to hold on to that person and to continue talking about them and all of those things. So I just think it's a natural thing that just should be. It should be what we talk about and what we read about.